The Silent Siege. How Cyberattacks Choked the Global Supply Chain, a NEXION documentary. NEXION. This is NEXION. We follow the quiet currents shaping history. Imagine a day when shelves sit empty, shipments stop moving, hospitals can't receive supplies, and factories pause, not because of storms, strikes, or wars with tanks, but because an invisible instruction made machines refuse to work. What does it feel like when the arteries of global trade are clogged by code? Welcome to The Silent Siege, the story of how cyber attacks turn logistics into a battlefield, and how fragile modern life suddenly looked without trucks, ports, and data flowing. Chapter 1. The Web That Connects Everything. The world's supply chain is an orchestra of software and steel. Ships move under GPS guidance. Cranes lift containers according to algorithms. Inventory systems trigger trucks. Custom systems release paperwork after a few keystrokes. What once was a laborious manual exchange has become a seamless, near-instant choreography. But with that efficiency came vulnerability. The same systems that let a product travel from factory to doorstep in weeks instead of months are the very points adversaries now seek. In every port terminal, warehouse management system, and custom server, there lies a digital seam, a place where a malicious actor can slip a code and watch the physical world stumble. This story does not start with a headline. It starts with a single day when one wrong file, one compromised update, or one corrupted certificate disrupted lines of supply so thoroughly that economies felt it. The cost was not only financial, it was a test of how dependent and how exposed we had become. Chapter 2. The First Signs. Small failures become big problems. At first, the failures look like normal glitches. A crane loses communication. A truck is delayed for hours at a port gate. An electronic manifest fails to upload. On their own, these are annoyances, an extra cost, a late shipment, but logistics runs on timing and margin. A single breakdown cascades. The next vessel misses its berth. A manufacturing line lacks a single component. A supermarket can't restock a best-selling item. Cyber attacks exploit that fragility by targeting the software that coordinates these steps. Warehouse management systems, scheduling platforms, GPS navigation, or the billing and customs portals. An attacker can introduce friction, slow it down, and the backlog doubles. Stop it, and the backlog becomes a crisis. One culprit is ransomware, which locks files and systems until the ransom is paid. Another tactic is denial of service, flooding systems until they collapse. Yet another is the more surgical tampering of routing and manifests, changing a delivery's digital identity so that it vanishes from the system. Whatever the method, the effect is the same. The physical world stalls because the digital world refuses to cooperate. Chapter 3. NotPetya. When code sank shipping lines. It's difficult to overstate the shockwaves from a single campaign in the summer of a recent year, a destructive malware wave that crippled ports, shipping companies, and logistics operators. Though initially framed as ransomware, forensic analysts later concluded it was designed primarily to destroy it. It moved fast. It eliminated backups. It rendered machinery and software useless. One major shipping and logistics conglomerate found terminals unreachable. Cranes froze mid-cycle. Containers sat with nowhere to go. Another global logistics provider shut down all operations to isolate the infection. The cost was measured in hundreds of millions of dollars. Lost cargo and delayed deliveries that rippled across continents. What made this attack terrifying was not only its scale, but its proof that digital sabotage could strike global trade with surgical precision. A single exploit in vendor software had become a nationwide outage for some companies and a multi-country economic shock for entire industries. Chapter 4. The Human Cost. Empty store shelves and halted medicine. When digital attacks freeze the supply chain, the impact is not abstract. It hits hospitals that rely on just-in-time deliveries for medical supplies. It hits farmers who cannot get seeds or spare parts for tractors. It hits small businesses that cannot replace inventory. It hits families who discover that a much-needed medicine or a staple food item is out of stock. Hospitals are especially vulnerable. Many institutions run specialized supply chains and depend on a regular cadence of deliveries for everything from sterile gloves to critical devices. A logistics halt can force them to delay elective procedures or, in some scenarios, reorganize patient care. The image of empty shelves in a pharmacy or grocery store is more than inconvenience. It is a public health concern. Because modern supply is so just in time, even a localized disruption can have national consequences. One port stuck for days becomes a bottleneck for an entire region. From a human perspective, the chain is only as strong as its weakest node, and increasingly, that node is digital. Chapter 5: Invisible Hands. The attackers and their motives. When we imagine attackers, we picture shadowy individuals in distant rooms, typing furiously. In reality, the landscape is more diverse. State-backed actors pursue geopolitical goals. Organized criminal groups look for profit. Ideologically driven hackers seek disruption for attention or principle. Each category chooses different targets and methods, but many converge on supply chains because the payoff is disproportionate. For state actors, hurting an adversary's economy can be an objective short of full-scale conflict. Disrupting energy or logistics can distract leadership, generate panic, and weaken resolve. For criminals, ransomware is a business model. Pay us and we will restore your system. For others, the goal is reputational, demonstrating the capability so unsettling it forces policy change. These motivations influence tactics. A criminal group may encrypt a hospital's records and demand payment. A nation may quietly alter shipment manifests to apply economic pressure or hide shipments of illicit material. Others may prefer to be covert, to remain invisible, and only reveal themselves with carefully timed, targeted disclosures. Chapter 6: The Weak Link. Third-party vendors and software supply chains. A pattern emerges in most major supply chain attacks. Compromise the vendor, not the primary target. Vendors provide software updates, tools, and services. They are trusted. When one vendor's update becomes the vector for a campaign, it is devastating. Suddenly, dozens, hundreds of companies that use the same software receive a poisoned update simultaneously. Security teams call this a supply chain attack, and it is one of the most dangerous forms of digital assault precisely because it leverages trust. Every company is only as secure as the ecosystem it relies upon. Software used by port operators, shipping companies, or warehouse platforms becomes a vector when attackers find a way to sign malicious code or exploit development pipelines. Defending against such threats requires more than firewalls. It requires continuous vetting of vendors, meticulous tracking of dependencies, and rapid incident response. For many organizations, the thought that a single update could halt operations halfway across the globe was theoretical until it became a reality. Chapter 7: Case Study. The Port That Stopped. To understand the mechanics, consider a composite case drawn from multiple real incidents. An automated gate check system controlling container release is connected to both customs and the port's terminal operating system. A vendor updates the software to patch a bug. Inside the update, an attacker has hidden a payload that corrupts the communication module between the gate reader and the management system. At first, the gate operator assumes a configuration error. Night shifts pass as trucks queue for hours. Containers miss pickups. The terminal tries to process manifests, but cannot reconcile records. International shipments are delayed. The shipping lines reroute vessels, costing millions in diverted travel and berthing fees. Trucking companies reassign drivers and charge premiums. Companies down the chain miss manufacturing windows. By the time the vendor detects the breach, the malware has mapped the network, corrupted logs, and encrypted backups. Recovery takes days, weeks, and in some instances, months. The economic cost is staggering. The reputational cost is long-standing. And amid the emergency, the public sees only empty shelves and delayed parcels. The invisible siege in plain sight. needing protection. Chapter 17. The Psychological Front. Fear, Rumors, and Trust. A less tangible, but equally important consequence is social psychology. Supply disruptions breed fear. Rumors spread that the shortage is artificial, that certain nations are hoarding supplies, that governments are hiding failures. Misinformation can derail rational policy and create panic buying, which in turn worsens shortages. Trust is the glue of complex systems. When consumers, businesses, and governments lose trust in the stability of supply, they behave differently. They hoard, they withdraw, they impose export controls. Rebuilding trust requires transparency, reliable communication, and demonstrable improvements in resilience. Chapter 18. The Future. Resilience by Design. What does the future look like? It's not a return to the past. The new normal will involve systems designed for resilience from the start. Digital twins simulate supply networks under attack scenarios. AI-driven prediction helps route shipments around emergent risks. Cryptographic assurances protect the provenance and integrity of manifests and software updates. The most promising developments are cooperative. Industry consortia sharing threat intelligence in near real time. Multinational agreements for incident response facilitation. Standards for secure software development. And public investments in critical node redundancy. The future also includes harder choices, balancing efficiency with redundancy, privacy with transparency, and national interests with global cooperation. But the imperative is clear. The world cannot endure a future where a single line of malicious code can paralyze the supply of essentials. Chapter 19. Where we stand. Lessons learned. The silent siege taught several lessons. 1. Interconnectedness is strength and vulnerability. The same network that enables trade makes it fragile. 2. Preparation matters more than panic. Companies that invested in resilience recovered faster. 3. Shared intelligence saves time and money. Open but secure channels for threat sharing accelerated recovery. 4. Policy must catch up to reality. International norms and incident reporting help, but are still a work in progress. 5. Human judgment remains central. Technology helps, but leadership, training, and culture determine outcomes. Chapter 20. Final Reflection. The Invisible Siege and the Choice Ahead. Cyberattacks on supply chains revealed a fundamental truth. Modern life depends on trust. The trust that systems work, that software does what it says, and that partners will hold up their end of the bargain. When trust is weaponized, the consequences ripple far beyond balance sheets. We stand at a crossroads. One path doubles down on speed and efficiency, risking more frequent and more catastrophic failures. The other path rebalances for resilience, trading some efficiency for security and stability. Choosing resilience is not merely defensive. It is a statement about values, that access to medicine, food, and essential goods should not be subject to the whims of hidden attackers. If this documentary leaves one impression, let it be this. The battles shaping our future will often be silent, hidden inside code, yet they will demand visible courage and visible cooperation. For the sake of fragile networks and the people who rely on them, we must learn to fight the unseen together. NEXION, Call to Action VO. If the idea that supply lines could be seized by lines of code chills you, subscribe to NEXION. We investigate the quiet forces reshaping our world. Leave a comment. Which resilient step should governments prioritize: regulation, infrastructure investment, or public-private intelligence sharing? We'll feature the best answers in our next documentary.